Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be making a tier list for all of the weapons in the finals, including the new weapons as well. So I'll be doing the lights weapons first, and then the mediums weapons, and then the heavies weapons, and then I'll do the new weapons for each class at the end. So we're going to start off with light, and we're going to begin with the M11. I'm going to put that in A for now. M11 is a pretty good option for those very, very close range fights. Nice fire rate, high magazine. The recoil pattern is a little bit annoying to control. It's a little bit difficult, so at the longer ranges, you're going to have a tougher time hitting shots, but it is an SMG, it's a close-range weapon, so at the close range for the light, I think this is probably going to be the best option. So that's going to go in A. And then we're going to be comparing that to the XP54, which is also going to go in A, but I'm going to put that in front of the M11. And by the way, whatever is on the left of each tier is like the best in that tier, and whatever is on the right of each tier is like the worst in the tier, just so you know. I'm going to put the XP54 in front of the M11 because it's going to be better at those longer ranges, and that's just going to give you more options in fights, really. If someone's at a longer range, you're going to have an easier time finishing them off, and also the recoil pattern is very, very nice on the XP54. The M11's benefits really are at the closer ranges, and the XP54's benefits are at the longer ranges. You can also hip fire with the M11 very, very, very accurately, and you can't really hip fire very accurately at all with the XP54, especially after the nerfs and buffs to each one. So just be aware of that. And then we're going to be comparing those to the V9S, which I'm going to put into B. I'm going to put this in B because it's a semi-auto weapon, and any semi-auto weapon is always going to be a lot harder to be effective with than a full auto weapon, because you have to like constantly be shooting the gun as fast as you possibly can while also hitting all of your shots, whereas with a full auto weapon, you hold down the trigger and then you just have to focus on the aim, right? So if you're trying to multitask, then obviously there's more things that you have to be really good at, but if you're just holding down the trigger, then you only have to focus on the aim. There's only one thing you have to concentrate on, right? So I think the V9S is going to go into B. It's pretty good, especially if you can hit your shots with it, but I do think the XP54, the M11, is just going to be a better option. Again, just because it's semi-auto, I think you're going to have a tougher time with it, but it's still a solid pick. If you like really, really like it, then you can go for it, but I do prefer the XP54 or the M11 for like the closer and the longer ranges as well. I think the V9S has some pretty hefty damage fall off on it on the longer ranges. And then we have the LH1. This is also going to go into B. Again, it's a semi-auto weapon, so it's going to be in B for all of those semi-auto weapon reasons. But also the visual recoil on this thing is kind of insane. You have to be really, really, really good at controlling the visual recoil. But if you can control that visual recoil, and you can shoot shots really, really, really quickly with the semi-auto fire, then this is going to be like very high A for light. It's like a very, very powerful weapon. You just have to be able to control it properly, but I do think it is pretty difficult to control, so I am going to leave it in B. But if you can control it, it is quite strong, but just for like the average person, it's really not going to be the best option. You're going to have a much easier time with the XP54 or the M11. It's not a very forgiving weapon either, which doesn't help. I suppose I'll do the sniper next. I kind of want to keep all the melee weapons together. I'll do the SH1900 next. I don't know if this is going to be for C. Will I put it in C? Yeah, I think I'll put it in C. This is going to go in C because it's just not that... Well, no, it's going to go in B. C's a bit harsh. It's going to go in B. So this 2 shots lights and 2 shots mediums, and then if you shoot a heavy twice with it, you have to melee them twice, I believe, to finish them off. So it's not going to be great if you're playing heavies, and if we're being realistic here in ranked, you're going to be facing mediums and heavies, so you're going to have a pretty tough time finishing them off. And if you can hit both of your shots with this thing, then that probably means you've got quite good aim, in which case you should just be using something else. Because even if you hit 2 shots with this, maybe the heavy doesn't die, but if you like can hit 2 shots with a shotgun, you're probably going to be able to have a better time with the XP54 or the M11. The shotgun has a very, very wide spread, so you have to be like right on top of people as well. So if you're using like the cloaking device to try and get close to people, then you have to hope that they don't like RPG you or shoot them with the SA-1216 or anything like that. So this thing's usefulness kind of depends on how good the enemy is. Even if you're using the evasive dash and you try and get close to someone, they might just be able to like track you and kill you before you can get a shot off. So I don't think it's fantastic. I don't think it's going to be in C tier though, because it does have a lot of potential. I think the rest of the light class just kind of lets it down though, so I am going to leave it last in B tier for the moment. Then we come to the dagger. You've got one-shot kill potential with this thing. I don't think it's a one-shot on the heavy. I think it's a one-shot on like 1 or 2 melees. But I'm going to put it into B. It's going to go on one of the last things on B, just because it's a melee weapon. Obviously, you don't have any range, so at any type of range, you're just not going to be able to do anything, and you're going to have to hope your enemies aren't really that good, because the cloaking device is very, very audible, and the evasive dash isn't so hard to track, right? So you just kind of have to hope you can get behind someone without that person killing you first, really. So that's probably going to be last in B tier. It could even go in C, but I'm thinking I'm going to save some other stuff for C. I might do some switching around later on, though. But it's definitely not going to be your best option for light. Now, the sword is pretty good. The sword, I think I am going to put in B. I'll put it slightly behind the... You know what? Well... No, I'll leave it behind the V9S. It's, like, very okay. But again, its effectiveness is going to depend on how good your opponents are. You have to get up close to the enemy. So, like, the enemy has to let that happen for you to be able to do any damage to them. But if you do get up close to someone, then it is going to pack quite a punch. You can kill people quite quickly, and also it's technically like silenced, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to know what you're getting hit by at certain points. And it does pack quite a punch, so it's definitely a solid weapon. I'm going to put it ahead of the shotgun and the dagger because I just think it's better. But again, it's a melee weapon, so at range you're just not going to be able to do anything, and that is going to be its downfall. Then we've got the throwing knife. I think I'm going to put these ahead of the dagger, just behind the sword. Really hard to hit shots with this. Its velocity was buffed a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit easier to hit shots now. They move faster. The projectiles move faster. But you still have to have really, really good aim to be able to hit shots with these. They are silenced as well, which is a nice little addition. But like, if you can hit your shots with these, you're probably just going to have an easier time with the XP54 or the M11, because they're both hit scan. It's going to be much, much easier to hit shots, and you're just probably going to be able to do more with it. It's going to be really hard to hit shots with these, and it's going to be even harder to hit headshots with these, right? So I don't think they're going to be the best option. And you kind of have to like constantly be firing at them to do lots of damage, whereas with the XP54, that unloads a mag pretty quick, so maybe like you appear to the enemy for like a couple of seconds, and then you just go away and disappear again. But with the throwing knives, because you don't have to reload them, there's like an extra thing you have to think about. You have to think about like not standing out in the open for a prolonged amount of time, because you can just fire these things without reloading as well, which is another thing that they've got against them, I think. Even though like not having to reload is actually a good thing, I think that can like make people think it's okay to stand out in the open and just keep firing, even though you're light and you're like the squishiest class. So I'm just going to leave it slightly behind the sword. Then we have the sniper. You know, if you can hit your shots with this thing, it's probably like SRA. If you can hit every single shot as a headshot, it's probably going to be SRA. But you're probably not going to be able to do that. So I think I might put it first in B, honestly. Very, very good. There's loads of damage. It's just going to be hard to hit those shots up close, and also it's going to be hard to hit those headshots at long range. And you have to hope that, like, if you're aiming down the sights and trying to snipe at someone, you have to hope they don't just RPG you, you know? So it's not going to be the best option against, like, heavies and stuff. They've got a lot of health. If you snipe someone once, they're probably just going to chuck a dome shield down. You're going to have a tough time destroying that. And if they're, like, stealing an objective and they've got, like, a mesh shield or a dome shield, and you try and go up close, you're probably not going to be able to do a whole lot. So I'm going to put this in B for the moment. So then we move on to the medium stuff. I'll put the FCAR first in A. I don't think this is an S tier weapon. I think it's very, very good. I don't think it's like insanely overpowered though. We're going to be saving S for something else later on. But the FCAR is very, 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 very strong. It's definitely going to be like the first in A tier. And then we've got the AKM as well, which is pretty similar to the FCAR, just does slightly less damage, has a lot of visual recoil on it, a little bit of a harder recoil pattern, and a much higher mag size as well. The FCAR's biggest downfall is its low mag size. But the FCAR packs a massive punch. It kills people really, really, really quickly, especially if you hit those headshots, but it absolutely deletes people. And the AKM is pretty strong as well, but, you know, it's got a lot more visual recoil, and the iron sights aren't really properly aligned to the center of the screen, which is a little bit annoying as well. But it is a very, very good backup option, especially if you're going to miss more shots. You should probably just go with the AKM because it's got a higher mag size, so it is a lot more forgiving than the SCAR, and it is a solid alternative. Then we'll probably go with the Model 1887 for the medium. This is also going to be an A tier. This thing packs quite a punch. Its main downfalls is that when you're reloading it, the first bullet that you put into like the chamber of the gun doesn't actually count as a reloaded pellet, which is really weird. I think it might just be a bug that hasn't been fixed, or like maybe it's unintentional or something. I'm not so sure. But like you have to reload a whole pellet into the chamber before it actually starts reloading the gun. So if you've got like one ammo left and you reload a pellet into the chamber and then shoot, you're going to be out of ammo. You're not going to have two pellets, you're just going to have the one that was still in the gun. So the reload is a little bit weird, and it's mega precise. The spread is really tight, so you have to be able to hit your shots pretty spot on to do a lot of damage with this thing. But if you can hit your shots, it's going to be very powerful. It might even be ahead of the AKM. It's like very strong if you can hit your shots effectively, but it's going to be pretty difficult to be able to effectively hit your shots every single time with this, which is why it's going to be behind the SDR and the AKM. It's a very high skill level weapon, I would say. Then we've got the revolver, and this is going to go into B, I think. It just doesn't really compete with the FCR at all, or the AKM for that matter. Not really a forgiving mag size. Damage fall off is pretty hefty. Even after the buff, its damage fall off was like buffed with the launch of Season 2, but it's still just not that great. So I think it is going to be in B tier. CL40 is also going to be in B. I know a lot of people like this. I know they liked like throwing a mine down and then blowing up the mine and getting a bunch of damage with one shot. But that kind of is gone now, because with the launch of Season 2, mines were nerfed so that if they aren't armed before they blow up, then they do much less damage. I think it might even be 20% of their damage or something. So that's not really going to be that effective with this. And in general, it only has 4 bullets in the mag. It's just very unforgiving, and it just doesn't do a whole lot of damage. And like if someone puts an APS turret down, there goes your CL40. You know, you can't really do much about that. You can't destroy the APS turret. You just have to rely on your teammates, and you're not going to be able to get any damage on the enemies if they're standing next to an APS turret. So I think it's not that great, but it can be good in certain situations. It can be really annoying to play against if you're just lobbing it into a building, and maybe if you're voice chatting with your other 2 teammates and they're inside the building fighting the enemies, if you're just outside somewhere just throwing grenades into the building, it can be annoying to play against, but I definitely don't think it's fantastic. So I am actually going to put it... I'll put it behind the sword, I think, is where I'm going to leave that, quite far down in B tier. Then we've got the Riot Shield. This really isn't that good at all, so I'm going to put this in C. I think this is going to be our first C tier weapon. It's one use. It's like defending the cash out, and if someone tries to steal it, then... like, no, I mean, it's one use is if your team is stealing the cash out and you have the Riot Shield on, and someone else tries to come and kill your teammate that's stealing the cash out, you can like try and block the bullets, and like then you'll get the cash out. But that's like a really rare instance, and you can just use like a dome shield on heavy or a mesh shield on heavy, and that's going to do a much better job. It's also a melee weapon, so you're just not going to be able to do a whole lot with it at the longer ranges. And even if you're like blocking and trying not to get shot, someone can just like move around you and hit you pretty easily, or they can use charge and slam or something and kill you pretty easily, or like any AoE. So it's really not that fantastic, and I think I am probably going to leave that in C. It's just not the best, really. So then we get to heavy. I'm going to go with the Lewis gun and the M60 first. I'll put the Lewis gun... am I going to put it ahead of the XP54? Or the M11? Yeah, I think I will. There's the Lewis gun, and then there is the M60 as well. I prefer the M60. I find the recoil pattern a little bit easier, especially after the buff, actually. I think the M60 got like an easier recoil pattern, and the Lewis gun got a harder recoil pattern, just slightly, but little buffs and nerfs there. So I think the M60 is pretty good, and the Lewis gun is also very good as well. I know a lot of people like the Lewis gun, but I like the M60 because it just has a much higher mag size. They're quite similar to like the differences between the SCR and the AKM. Like one has a higher mag size, one does more damage, one has a higher fire rate, and so on. But it's really just preference. I think the M60 is pretty good. Lewis gun is also pretty good as well, but the 60 bullets in the M60 is very, very, very good. I'm not sure if it's 60, but it has a much higher mag size than the Lewis gun's 47 anyway. So it really is just preference there. Just try them both out, see which one you prefer. But I think they're both quite good. But for the heavy, you just want to use the SA-1216, which is an S tier. I found it a little bit annoying with the launch of Season 2 that the SA-1216 wasn't nerfed, because it's just the absolutely undeniable meta right now, and it was for all of Season 1 as well. So I used this thing all throughout Season 1 to get to Diamond, and now I'm playing Ranked in Season 2, and like I'm still just using the same weapon to rank up quickly, which is kind of annoying. It would have been nice to have seen a change in the meta, but it's just there's absolutely no changes whatsoever to this. Like even the FCAR, which is pretty good in Season 1 as well, got a little buff to like a little nerf, I think, to the damage fall off range it has. But absolutely no changes whatsoever to the SA-1216. And for reference, this has 16 bullets in a mag, and after every 4 shots, you have to like pump it. But you can kill a heavy with 4 shots. So if you shoot all 4 shots and all of those 4 shots hit a heavy, the heavy just dies. So if there's 3 heavies on the enemy team, you can potentially kill all of them with 1 magazine and still have 4 bullets left over, which is kind of insane. It's like very, 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 very powerful, and it's not that difficult to hit those shots either. Like the spread is quite wide, but it's like also quite tight. It's probably somewhere between like the Model 1887 and the SH1900. It would be in between those two spreads, because Model 1887 is very, very tight and SH1900 is quite large, but this is like kind of in the middle of those two, so not that hard to hit shots, and when you do hit the shots, it does do lots and lots and lots of damage. So definitely just really, really strong, and if someone's like very, very low and they try running away, you can just finish them off at super, super long range as well. Like if they've got a sliver of health and you shoot them, they're gonna die. It's got quite a lot of range on it, even though it's got quite a lot of damage fall off as well, because it is a shotgun, of course. But definitely just the undeniable absolute meta. It just does crazy amounts of damage. I see a lot of people using the Lewis gun in Ranked, at least they were in Season 1, but like if you're playing heavy, you really just want to be using the SA-1216. It's just like by far the best weapon in the game. It was like that for all of Season 1, and now it is going to be like that for Season 2 as well. It's just absolutely insane. It does crazy amounts of damage, and I really can't believe it wasn't nerfed in with the launch of Season 2. But anyway, then we're going to come to the Flamethrower. It's either going to be C or B. Am I going to put it in B? Maybe I'll put it in B. I'll put it slightly behind the sword again. So it's got some usefulness, right? It can like go through shields, which is going to be useful in certain instances. Its range isn't great, which is going to be its downfall, really. Like even with the shotgun, like the Flamethrower's downfall is that the shotgun is just better in every single way. Like the shotgun kills people faster, the shotgun has more range. So yeah, like it kills people faster and has more range, really. The Flamethrower is a little bit useful. Again, it does go through shields, but at those close range engagements, you're really not going to want the Flamethrower. You might even want like the Sledgehammer instead. It just doesn't kill people quick enough. And yes, you can hit multiple targets at the same time, but like that's generally not going to be great. You normally want to try focusing on getting one enemy dead instead of getting lots of people low. It's always going to be easier for your teammates to take like a 3v2 than a 3v3 where all of the enemies are still alive even if they're low, right? So it's just not that great. I could put it in C here, but I don't think it's like much worse than the CL40 or anything else here, so I'll just leave it in B. But really, really not that great anyway. You'd like just put the SA-1216 on, or even the Sledgehammer, which I'm going to put into... Where am I going to put the Sledgehammer? I might just leave it... It's not C tier. The Sledgehammer isn't C tier. I'll put it ahead of the Flamethrower. I'll put it there, like that, I think. Lots of environmental destruction. Obviously, its downfall is that it's melee only, and the SA-1216 at the close range is just going to kill someone a lot faster. In Ranked, I faced off a lot of people that were using the Sledgehammer when I was using the SA-1216, and even if they tried to like charge and slam me to get closer to them, I could just kill them before they even were in range with me, right? SA-1216 is just so powerful that it really just doesn't make much room for people to use the Sledgehammer or the Flamethrower. It's just that much better, so the Sledgehammer isn't going to be great. And also it's a melee weapon, right? So it's got no range options. So you have to kind of adjust your loadout to make it work, which is always not going to be so fantastic, I think. So that is going to remain in B. MGL32. I think this is going to go in D. It's just really not that good. Like, even the CL40 is going to be better because it's going to be easier to hit shots with that. But the MGL32 doesn't do a whole lot of damage. It's got a very unforgiving mag size, and it's really, really, really hard to hit shots with it. And also the ADS is a little bit ugly on it as well, but that's kind of more of a minor thing. Yeah, just really hard to hit shots with this, and when you do hit shots, it doesn't do a crazy amount of damage. And also the mag size is pretty unforgiving as well. I think it's only 6 bullets in the mag, so just all around not a very good weapon at all, and there were no changes to it with Season 2 either. So if you want a long-range weapon, you're going to go with the M60 or the Lewis gun, and if you want a close-range weapon, you're going to go with the SA-1216, and like this is kind of just in limbo somewhere. Like, there's no option where this is going to be good to use, really. Like, yes, you can have two teammates all coordinated fighting the enemy team inside a building, and you can try lobbing grenades into the building, but you're going to be able to do more damage with the CL40 because that blows up on impact than you will with this, because this bounces once and then blows up on impact. So you kind of have to guess where the enemies are going to go when you shoot, and the projectile speed is very, very slow, so you have to kind of get lucky if your enemies are moving in a certain direction and you hit a shot as well. So just really, really not a great weapon at all, and I definitely wouldn't recommend using it, especially in ranked. By the way, this is all just like for ranked, really. Like, if you're using quick play and you're just having fun, like, just use whatever. But for ranked, this is going to be like what the best stuff is to use if you actually want to win games and so on. And then we have the 9-3R, the FAMAS, and the, I think it's called the KS-23 shotgun. I'm actually not sure what it's called. It's the slug shotgun for the heavy. So we're going to start with the lights one, and we're going to put that behind the V9S. We're going to put it ahead of the V9S. We're going to put it ahead of the LH1. Well, will I just put it here? Will I put it in A? I don't think it's an A tier weapon. I might put it first in B. Or maybe I'll put it in A tier. I don't really want to put it in A. I'm going to put it first in B. This is a very okay weapon. But again, it's semi-auto. It's not really semi-auto. It's a burst weapon, but holding down the trigger doesn't make it constantly fire bursts, which is really, really, really annoying. I would have really liked it if you could hold down the trigger to make burst weapons keep firing, but you can't. So if you press the trigger, it shoots a burst, and then you have to keep tapping it. So it's like a semi-auto burst weapon, which is really, really annoying. And again, that's just going to make it a lot harder to hit shots with this thing, because you have to focus on trying to shoot as fast as you can, while also focusing on aiming. But even if you can hit all of your shots with this thing and get the fire rate really, really high, I think the XP54 and the M11 are just going to be better. They seem to have similar time to kills, but the XP54 is going to be better at the longer ranges, and I think the M11 is going to be better at the closer ranges as well, because again, you can hip fire very, very accurately with this thing, and you can't really do that with this burst weapon. And again, it is semi-auto, it is a burst, so it's just going to be more inconsistent at times, because you're not going to be able to always get that high fire rate, and that's going to lead to inconsistency. Whereas the M11, you shoot, the weapon fires, it always has the same fire rate. It's just going to be more consistent, and it's going to just feel better to use as well. So I think it will go first in B. I could put it last in A, but I honestly don't think it's that good at all. It's not going to be C or D. Like, it's very, very okay. I do think it's better than the V9S. I think the V9S has like a lot of damage fall off, and this has like a good bit of damage fall off. So I think it's going to be a little bit better. But I think first in B tier is very, very good. This is locked, but I've used it a lot in the practice range, so that's how I know this. If you like go into the practice range for 30 minutes and like properly test out all of the things, you can get a pretty good understanding of them. The FAMAS I have used a good bit. And this thing isn't great. It's really, really not that good. I think this is also going to be high in B. FCAR just does a lot more damage, and the AKM is just feels more consistent. Again, it's a burst weapon, so it's like a burst semi-auto weapon. You have to keep tapping the trigger. The good thing about the FAMAS is the recoil. You really, really don't have to do a whole lot to manage the recoil at all. Even at the longer ranges, you only have to move your mouse down like a tiny bit. So this weapon is super, 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 super accurate. So if you're someone that doesn't like controlling the recoil, or if you're someone that doesn't like visual recoil, the FAMAS is probably going to be for you. That's its main benefits. It's just very, 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 very accurate. And if you could hold down the trigger and it would like shoot the bursts when you were holding down the trigger instead of having to tap it, it would be a lot better. I might even move it up to A, but as it is, you have to tap fire, which is really annoying. And you're just not going to be able to hit those high fire rates every single time you're trying to shoot at someone. And even if you do shoot the fire rate really, really fast, the FCAR just still does more damage. So even if you're like shooting as fast as you possibly can, and you're hitting the headshots, and you're controlling the recoil, the FCAR is still better. So there's really not much point to use this weapon. The FCAR also is better at the closer ranges as well, I believe, because the FAMAS has like a lot of hip fire dispersion at the closer ranges, and the FCAR has significantly less. So it really is just a B tier weapon. I think the AKM is just going to be better than the FAMAS as well. The visual recoil is a little bit annoying, and the lack of the iron sights being aligned like perfectly on the AKM is pretty annoying as well. But I still think the AKM is better than the FAMAS. It's like very, very okay. And then we've got the heavy shotgun, and this thing really isn't that good. Am I gonna put it into B tier? We've got the revolver there, sniper, LH1, V9S. Yeah, I think I'll just put this in B as well, because these weapons aren't awful, but they're also just like definitely not that well. This is pretty bad though. I'll put it in B. The reason I'm putting this in B is because it packs a massive punch. It does a lot of damage if you hit your shots, but the problem is it's really, 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 really hard to hit your shots. The first reason for that is because it's a projectile weapon. It's not hit scan, so you have to be able to like aim at people and kind of guess where they're going from far away, which is always going to be much harder than hit scan. And also, it's got a bunch of bloom on it. So if you're like not crouching and standing still, which you don't really want to be doing in a gunfight, you're just not going to be able to hit shots with this thing. Like if you're sprinting and you try and shoot someone, you're just going to miss because the bloom is much wider when you're sprinting or just moving in general, right? And even if you're just walking and someone's like 10 meters away, it's going to be really hard to hit that shot. They have to be like very, very, very close to you for you to be able to consistently hit them. And if someone's very, very, very close to you, that's where the SA-1216 just shines, right? So this is like crazy overshadowed by the SA-1216. It does do a lot of environmental damage. I think it's 4 shots destroys anything. Like shoot a wall 4 times, the wall goes. Shoot a roof 4 times, the roof goes. But the SA-1216 just does much, 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 much more damage. So it is definitely just overshadowed by the SA-1216, like completely. The SA-1216 is just so good that you really shouldn't be using this weapon at all. It's just much, much, much better. And this is like a very, very close range weapon, right? But so is the SA-1216, so why would you use this? If you want to blow up a wall, like use the RPG or use explosive mines or something. So I think this is pretty good. It's kind of interesting that all of the new weapons are in B. It's really annoying for me that you can't hold down the trigger to shoot these burst weapons. If you could, this might change my opinion on them, but I just absolutely hate semi-auto weapons. Like, I absolutely hate the V9S, the LH1. I don't mind the revolver, but I don't like the V9S, don't like the LH1, and I don't like the FAMAS or the Lights pistol either, just because it's really, really hard to be able to hit semi-auto shots and get the higher rate as high as possible, and also try and actually focus on hitting the enemy. I think that's really, really hard to do, and I was really, really disappointed to learn that you had to, like, keep tap firing for these to keep bursting. So it's just, like, a massive downside, just for me personally, on these 2 new weapons. And then we've also got the shotgun, but this just kind of sucks, really. So I'm just not really using the new weapons, because they're really just not that good. They just don't compete with anything else that's in the A tier, really, which is really unfortunate. Like, obviously, when new weapons come to the game, you don't really want them to be, like, absolutely overpowered, and you have to use these to be able to compete in ranked. But it is a little bit unfortunate that they just kind of aren't as good as anything as we had before. Like, the FCAR got some nerfs. I don't think the AKM was changed, but they're still the best things to use for medium. XP54 got some nerfs. M11 got a couple of buffs, just very minor nerfs and buffs. But like they still are much better than the V9S. It's not the V9S, it's called the 93R, I think. And then the SA-1216 just wasn't changed at all, and it's much, much better than the shotgun. So it would have been nice if these were slightly better, and then they were all in A, and then you had like a lot of options for stuff that was really, really good. but unfortunately that's not the case. These are all in B, and these are all in A. For particular reasons. The A stuff is a lot better than the B stuff, obviously, and then the shotgun is just a lot better than the heavy shotgun. But there you go. I think I'm pretty okay with all of that. I could have put some of the stuff in C, like maybe the sledgehammer in C because it's a melee weapon, maybe even the sword and the dagger in C because they're both melee weapons as well. And with melee weapons as a light especially, you really just have to hope that your opponents aren't that good. If your opponents are good, you're not going to be able to get close to them with the cloaking device, and you're probably not going to be able to get close to them with the evasive dash either. So a lot kind of banking on the fact that your opponents aren't good there with the melee weapons, but I think I'm just going to leave them in B. They're definitely not going to be an A tier anyway. But yeah, I think I'll leave that there. I think that's pretty good. If you want like a gadget video, I can do that as well. I can go through all the new gadgets. And I guess I can do it for the specializations as well. Because there's a bunch of new gadgets and there's one new specialization for the medium with the launch of Season 2. But I think that pretty much sums it up here. It's really, really a little bit annoying that like the meta basically just didn't change. Like for Season 1, the meta for the heavy was SA1216, the meta for the medium was FCAR, and the meta for the light was either like XP54 or M11, or the LH1, but like you had to be really, 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 really good to make the LH1 work. And that just hasn't been changed. So if you go into ranked, there's nothing really new or exciting. It's all going to be the same stuff, at least weapon-wise. Which is a little bit annoying, but at least none of the weapons are like crazy overpowered or anything, which like I guess is the good thing. They balance them like pretty much in the middle, which I guess is what you want to do. And if they need to, then they can buff them, but they're certainly not going to need nerfs anyway. But yeah, there you go. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to be it for this video. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Farewell.